What if the little box of chamomile tea in your kitchen cupboard carried thousands of years of history within it? Tonight, we're stepping into the world of chamomile, a flower tied to sleep, luck, nervous system healing, and the softer side of medicine. Welcome to the Green Room Apothecary, a place where plants are more than remedies or medicine. They're remembered wisdom, part of our collective living history. Step into the garden with me to explore the history, folklore, and science behind the herbs that have shaped human healing for centuries. Whether you're here to learn something new, to unwind, or gently drift off to sleep, I'm so happy that you're here with me. I'm your host, Nimue, and this is where ancient wisdom meets modern life. Before we walk down the garden path tonight, I'd love for you to take a moment and settle in. We'll start by anointing this space with a brief guided meditation about chamomile. But first, I'd love for you to tell me where you are in the world and what time it is as you're listening. I love imagining this space connecting across different places and times. And if you've spent time with chamomile, I'd love to hear what your experience has been. Before we move into history or science, let's begin the way all relationships with plants begin, with presence. Take a deep breath. Hold it for just a second and let it go. Close your eyes. Imagine we're walking together into a sun-drenched garden. It's late afternoon, golden hour. The heat of the day has baked the earth, and the air is thick with a scent that is instantly recognizable. It smells like bruised apples, like warm honey, like fresh hay drying in the summer sun. Now look down at your feet. There, spilling over the edges of a stone path, is a low-growing carpet of feathery, bright green lace. And rising from those delicate leaves are hundreds of tiny, cheerful flowers. They look like miniature daisies, crisp white petals curving downward, pushing up a hollow, golden yellow cone that reaches for the light. Now reach down. Gently pinch one of those little yellow suns between your thumb and forefinger. Roll it, crush it just a little. Now bring your fingers to your nose and inhale. That is chamomile. Sweet, grounding, maternal, the universal mother of the herb garden. But don't let her gentle nature fool you. Tonight we're going to explore why this delicate little flower was revered by ancient pharaohs as a symbol of the sun god. We will discover the botanical magic that makes its essential oil turn a brilliant sapphire blue when distilled. We'll look at modern clinical studies proving its power over our nervous systems, and we'll also uncover why planting it next to a dying plant in your garden might just bring that plant back to life. So settle in, let the day wash away. We have so much to discover together. To truly know a plant, we must first learn its name and its family. When we talk about chamomile, we're generally speaking of two distinct yet closely related plants within the Asteraceae family, the daisy family. First, there's German chamomile, which grows upright, reaching toward the sky on slender branching stems. And there's Roman chamomile, a creeping perennial ground cover that hugs the earth. While they have slight chemical differences, their souls and their uses are very much the same. The name chamomile is a poem in itself. It comes to us from the ancient Greek words chamai, meaning on the ground, and melon, meaning apple, the earth apple. If you've ever walked over a lawn of Roman chamomile, crushing it beneath your bare feet, You know exactly why the Greeks named it this. The scent is undeniably that of crisp, sweet apples warming on the orchard floor. In Spain, the plant is called manzanilla, which translates to little apple. It's a scent that crosses borders, centuries, and languages. But long before the Greeks named it, the ancient Egyptians revered it. To the Egyptians, chamomile was sacred. It was a plant of the sun, dedicated to Ra, the supreme sun god. Look at the flower. The bright yellow domed center is the sun itself, and the white petals are the rays of light beaming outward. The Egyptians didn't just see this visual poetry, they utilized the plant's profound medicinal power. They used it to treat malaria. They used it to soothe the inevitable fevers that swept through the ancient world. And fascinatingly, because of its powerful antibacterial and preserving properties, chamomile was one of the key botanicals used in the mummification process, preparing pharaohs for their eternal journey into the afterlife. It was a flower of life, of light, and of eternity. As we move forward in time and travel north, the lore shifts, but their reverence deepens. In Anglo-Saxon England, chamomile was known as maithen. It was so highly valued, it was recorded in Lacunga, an ancient manuscript of medicinal texts and prayers, as one of the 9 sacred herbs. According to the famous 9 herbs charm, the god Odin took 9 magic twigs and smote a serpent, shattering it into 9 pieces. To protect humanity from the venom blown into the world, he gave us 9 sacred herbs. Chamomile was one of them. The charm sings, "Never forget maithen, the herb of the earth, which was prepared at Oliveford, that it never let a flying venom harm anyone." A delicate apple-scented flower, given by the gods to protect humanity from invisible poisons and disease. In the Middle Ages, chamomile found its way indoors. Before the luxury of carpets, the floors of castles, manors, and humble cottages were covered in dirt or stone. To keep the home smelling fresh and to deter pests, people practiced something called strewing. They would gather fragrant herbs and scatter them across the floor. Chamomile was a favorite strewing herb because, unlike other plants that die and wither when trampled, chamomile thrives on it. There's an old proverb, "Like a chamomile bed, the more it is trodden, the more it will spread." It became a symbol of resilience in adversity, a reminder that sometimes being walked over doesn't destroy us. It forces us to dig our roots deeper and grow thicker, stronger, and more unyielding. This resilience gave birth to a beautiful piece of gardening folklore. Chamomile became known as the plant's physician. Old English gardeners believed that if you had a plant in your garden that was drooping, diseased, or failing to thrive, you simply planted chamomile next to it. The sheer presence of the earth apple, they said, would cure the ailing plant and bring it back to vibrant health. It was the nurse of the garden, the mother. In the realm of magic and spirituality, chamomile is almost always governed by the sun and the element of water. It is a plant of purification, peace, and protection. Folklore tells us that washing your hands in chamomile tea will bring you luck at the card table, drawing prosperity and abundance to you. A sprig of it tucked over your doorway was said to keep negative energies from crossing the threshold. When we look at global healing traditions, we see this plant universally recognized for its ability to bring balance. In traditional Chinese medicine, chamomile is known to clear heat. It is cooling in nature, making it perfect for angry, hot conditions like inflamed skin, red eyes, or a hot, irritable temper. It is used to remove stagnant liver qi, which, when blocked, causes frustration, tension, and headaches. Above all, it is used to calm the shen, the spirit, anchoring a restless mind. In Ayurveda, the ancient medical system of India, chamomile is a profound pacifier for the pitta dosha, the energy of fire and water. Just with traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda recognized chamomile's ability to cool the fiery, inflammatory conditions of pitta. It soothes the Maja Dhatu, the nerve tissue, wrapping the frayed edges of a stressed nervous system in a cooling, protective blanket. And in Unani medicine, an ancient system with roots in Greece and Persia, it is known as babuna. Unani practitioners have used it for centuries as a brain and nerve tonic, a medicine to dissolve cold phlegm, and a treatment for aching joints and melancholy. From the sun-baked temples of Egypt to the damp soils of Anglo-Saxon England, from ancient Chinese apothecaries to modern gardens, chamomile has always been there, a gentle, persistent whisperer, a reminder to soften, to heal, to rest. Beyond its role as a gentle medicine, chamomile has long carried a quieter kind of magic, one rooted in warmth, luck, peace, and the subtle restoration of harmony. For centuries, chamomile has appeared in folk traditions across Europe as a plant associated with prosperity, protection, restful sleep, purification, emotional healing, and good fortune. And unlike many herbs tied to protection through intensity or sharpness, chamomile's energy has always felt softer than that, more inviting, more like the magic of comfort itself. In old folk practices, chamomile was scattered around the home to dissolve tension and invite calm back into shared spaces. It was added to baths to cleanse emotional heaviness, brewed into teas before sleep, and tucked into pillows to encourage peaceful dreams. Some traditions even held that chamomile helped soothe conflict between people, not by forcefully removing negativity, but by softening the emotional atmosphere around it. And perhaps that's why it became so beloved. Chamomile doesn't feel dramatic. It feels safe. In forms of green witchcraft, chamomile is often worked with in rituals involving emotional peace, luck, abundance, sleep, nervous system healing, self-love, and gentle protection. Historically, gamblers would wash their hands in chamomile tea before games of chance, believing it attracted luck and favorable outcomes. Others sprinkled chamomile-infused water near doorways or thresholds to welcome prosperity into the home. And gardeners developed a particularly beautiful belief around the plant. Astrologically, chamomile has traditionally been associated with the sun, and the symbolism feels almost immediate when you look at it. Those tiny golden centers, surrounded by pale petals, resemble miniature suns scattered across the earth. Solar herbs are connected to warmth, vitality, optimism, restoration, abundance, and life force itself. But chamomile expresses solar energy in a gentler register. Not the blazing heat of midday, more like morning sunlight filtering softly through curtains. Warmth without harshness. Some herbal astrologers also connect chamomile to Leo because of its solar quality, while others associate it secondarily with Cancer because of its nurturing, emotionally comforting nature. And strangely enough, those correspondences align beautifully with how chamomile actually feels in the body, not sedating in a heavy way, but reassuring, a plant that gently reminds the nervous system that it is safe enough to rest. In tarot, chamomile aligns beautifully with the Sun card, not because it demands attention, but because it carries the same emotional atmosphere: warmth, joy, openness, relief after difficulty, and the feeling of returning to yourself. Some practitioners also associate chamomile with temperance, the card of balance, healing, patience, and restoration, which feels deeply fitting. Because chamomile rarely forces transformation. It works gradually, quietly, like water smoothing stone over time. And perhaps that's the deeper magic of chamomile. Not that it overwhelms the body with intensity, but that it creates enough softness for healing to unfold naturally. A reminder that comfort itself can be medicinal, that rest is sacred, and that sometimes the gentlest plants become the ones we return to for an entire lifetime. But what happens when we strip away the myth and legend? What happens when we take this magical earth apple out of the folklore and place it on a slide? Let's find out. When we look at chamomile through the lens of modern science, the magic doesn't disappear. It changes languages. When we look at chamomile through the lens of modern science, the magic doesn't disappear. It just changes languages. Instead of gods and flying venom, we speak in the poetry of molecules, flavonoids, and volatile oils. Chamomile is a biochemical powerhouse containing over 120 secondary metabolites, including 28 terpenoids and 36 flavonoids. But you don't need a degree in chemistry to understand how this works in your body. We are just going to look at the stars of the show. The first star is an antioxidant called apigenin. If you have ever drank a cup of chamomile tea and felt your shoulders physically drop, your jaw unclench, and your racing thoughts slow to a manageable hum, you have apigenin to thank. Inside your brain, you have receptors for a neurotransmitter called GABA. Think of GABA as the brake pedal for your nervous system. When your brain is speeding out of control with stress or anxiety, GABA is the chemical that steps on the brakes and says, slow down, we're safe. Pharmaceutical anti-anxiety drugs like benzodiazepines, think Valium or Xanax, work by binding to these exact same GABA receptors, aggressively forcing the nervous system to shut down and sleep. Apigenin, the beautiful flavonoid in chamomile, also binds to these very same GABA receptors, but it does so gently. It doesn't slam on the brakes, it just eases off the accelerator. It is an anxiolytic, an anxiety reducer, and a mild sedative. It calms the central nervous system without the addictive properties or the heavy, groggy hangover of synthetic pharmaceuticals. But the real magic trick of chamomile lies in its essential oils, specifically a compound called matricin. In its natural state within the living flower, matricin is colorless. But when an herbalist or a chemist takes chamomile flowers and steam distills them to extract the essential oil, the heat and pressure cause a spectacular chemical reaction. The matricin degrades and transforms into a new compound called chamazulene. And chamazulene isn't colorless, it's blue, a deep, vibrant, shocking ink-stained blue. If you ever purchase a high-quality bottle of German chamomile essential oil, you might gasp when you first open it. The liquid inside looks like liquid sapphire. Chamazulene, along with another oil called bisabolol, are fiercely anti-inflammatory. They inhibit the body's production of prostaglandins and leukotrienes, the chemicals in our body that trigger pain, swelling, and inflammation. This is why chamomile is a master of the skin. When applied topically, these blue cells calm eczema, soothe burns, heal wounds, and reduce the redness of rashes. It is a vulnerary, a tissue healer, but perhaps chamomile's most famous clinical application is in the digestive system. We often forget about the gut-brain connection, the enteric nervous system. Our gut is lined with millions of neurons. When our brain is stressed, our gut ties itself into knots. We get cramps, indigestion, spasms, and nausea. Chamomile is a carminative. It dispels gas. It's also a spasmolytic. It stops muscle spasms. Because it calms the central nervous system in the brain and relaxes the smooth muscles of the digestive tract simultaneously, it treats the root cause of nervous indigestion. It is actually a key ingredient in iberogast, a highly researched clinical herbal formula used worldwide to treat IBS. But does it hold up in clinical trials for anxiety and sleep? In a landmark study published by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania, scientists looked at patients diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. They gave one group a pharmaceutical-grade chamomile extract and the other a placebo. And the results were stunning. The patients taking chamomile experienced a statistically significant reduction in their anxiety symptoms compared to the placebo group. It wasn't just a folklore remedy anymore, it was a measurable clinical relief for clinical anxiety. Another beautiful study out of Taiwan focused on postnatal women, new mothers suffering from poor sleep quality and the overwhelming fatigue that comes with a newborn. They had one group drink a cup of chamomile tea every day for 2 weeks. The mothers who drank the tea showed significantly lower scores of sleep and efficiency, and also lower symptoms of depression compared to the control group. The earth apple stepping in to mother the mothers. I love it. Now, as we talk about all of this wonderful science, it is time for a necessary pause. I'm an herbalist and your host, not a doctor. While herbs are natural, they are powerful and they demand our respect. Chamomile is incredibly gentle and generally recognized as safe for children, the elderly, and most adults. However, it's a member of the daisy family. If you have a severe allergy to ragweed, chrysanthemums, marigolds, or daisies, you should approach chamomile with extreme caution, as there can be cross-reactivity that causes allergic reactions. Also, chamomile contains compounds that could potentially amplify the effect of blood thinners, so be sure to talk to your healthcare provider before taking chamomile. And always listen to your body, and always consult your doctor. Now that we have that out of the way, let's step out of the laboratory. Let the sterile lights fade. Let's go back into the warm, earthy light of the garden and bring our harvest into the kitchen. To make medicine, we have to harvest first. If you are growing chamomile, and I highly encourage you to do it, it's incredibly forgiving. The timing of harvest is everything. You want to pick the flowers on a dry, sunny morning. Wait until the morning dew has completely evaporated from the petals, but before the high heat of the afternoon sun begins to bake the essential oils out of the plant. When the white petals have pushed fully backward, exposing that bright yellow cone, she's ready. You don't need scissors. Just run your fingers lightly under the flower head and gently pull upward. The head will pop off right into your palm. To dry them, lay the blossoms in a single layer on a screen or a clean towel. Keep them in a warm, dry, well-ventilated room, completely out of direct sunlight. Sunlight will bleach the vibrant color and degrade those volatile oils that we talked about. When they're completely crisp to the touch, store them in a glass mason jar in a dark cupboard. Now let's make a cup of tea. Making a true medicinal cup of chamomile tea requires one crucial step that most people miss. You must cover the mug. Remember those volatile oils we talked about? The ones that hold the anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic magic? They are called volatile because they evaporate quickly into the air when heated. If you pour your boiling water over your chamomile tea and leave the mug open, all of that beautiful medicine will evaporate in the steam. It'll make your kitchen smell wonderful, but it won't be in your cup. So, use about 1 heaping tablespoon of dried flowers per 8 ounces of water. Pour your hot, not quite boiling water over the herbs, and immediately place a saucer, a lid, or a small plate over the top of the mug. Let it steep in the dark for a good 5 to 10 minutes. And when you lift the lid, look at the underside of it. You'll see tiny droplets of condensation. That is your essential oil. Tap those drops back into the cup, and that is your medicine. If tea isn't your thing, chamomile makes a wonderful folk tincture. Take a clean glass jar and fill it halfway with dried chamomile flowers, or all the way up to the top if using fresh ones. Pour an 80 proof alcohol like a standard vodka over the flowers until the jar is completely full, and then cap it tight, shake it well, and let it sit in a dark cupboard for 4 to 6 weeks, shaking it every few days. Then strain it out and you have a concentrated, shelf-stable extract. A few drops from a dropper in water can calm a racing mind in minutes. For children or those avoiding alcohol, a glycerite is a really good alternative. Instead of vodka, you extract the herbs using vegetable glycerin and a splash of distilled water. Glycerin is really sweet, even though it doesn't have any sugar in it. And a few drops of chamomile glycerite in a child's tongue can soothe teething pain, quiet a stomach ache, or calm a tantrum before bedtime. It tastes like liquid honey and apples. Yum. And finally, a syrup. You can brew a very strong, heavily concentrated chamomile tea, strain it, and while the liquid is still warm, whisk in an equal part of raw local honey. This beautiful golden syrup can be stirred into hot water, drizzled over oatmeal, or taken by the spoonful to coat a scratchy, irritated throat. As for dosage, chamomile is a plant of gentle nourishment. A cup of tea after dinner or a few drops of tincture when stress flares. It's a plant meant to be woven into the fabric of your daily life, not just reserved for emergencies. I want to take a moment to share what this plant means to me. My first encounter with chamomile was probably much like yours. It was a little yellow box in the grocery store aisle, sleepy time tea, the classic paper tea bag with the dust inside. Even then, in its most commercial form, it held comfort. At some point, my relationship with chamomile shifted from simply drinking it to growing it. I still remember my first chamomile plant. It began as a handful of tiny seeds, delicate enough to almost disappear into the soil. And then slowly, it transformed into this enormous, sprawling plant. Soft green stems covered in what felt like hundreds of tiny white blossoms. It felt almost impossible to harvest them quickly enough. Every morning there seemed to be more flowers waiting for me. And there was something deeply joyful about that abundance. The ritual of collecting the blossoms became part of my summer rhythm, standing in the garden with warm sunlight overhead, gently pinching each bloom from the stem, breathing in that unmistakable apple-like scent chamomile carries so naturally. After drying them, I began folding them into my own bedtime tea blends, little custom mixtures made for quiet evenings and softer landings at the end of a long day. And when the mood strikes me, sometimes I still do, a few dried blossoms added to lemon balm, lavender, or mint. Simple things, gentle things. And over time, chamomile slowly found its way into other rituals of mine as well, occasionally into skincare, infused oils, warm baths, moments where care itself becomes something intentional and sensory. And perhaps that's part of chamomile's deeper charm. It's not a plant that usually arrives dramatically. Instead, it quietly integrates itself into the fabric of daily life. Gardens, tea cupboards, evening rituals, bedside tables, until one day you realize it's become part of the atmosphere of the home itself. Let's open up the apothecary cabinet and review what we've collected today. The nervous system soother. Through compounds like apogenin binding to GABA receptors, chamomile eases anxiety, panic, and stress, gently easing off the nervous system's accelerator. The digestive peacemaker. An amazing carminative and spasmolytic. It unwinds the gut-brain connection, soothing cramps, indigestion, and tension held in the belly. The skin healer. Packed with blue chamazoline and bisabolol. It cools inflammatory heat, speeds wound healing, and calms irritated, angry skin. The sleep bringer. A mild, non-addictive sedative that promotes deep, restful sleep without the morning fog, supporting exhausted mothers, burned-out workers, and restless minds. If you want it, your homework this week is simple. Find some chamomile. If you can find it fresh, crush a leaf between your fingers and smell the earth apple. If you have it dried, brew yourself a proper cup of tea tonight, and remember to cover your mug. Trap that magic. Inhale the steam, and allow yourself to soften. If you need a place to begin, I've linked a few of my favorite loose leaf and tea bag options in the project notes so you can bring this plant into your own space. Those are affiliate links that gently support the Green Room Apothecary, a simple way to help keep this project growing at no extra cost to you. And if you feel curious to wander further, you'll also find a full bibliography in the show notes with all of the sources that shaped today's episode. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for walking through the garden with me today. Until next time, keep your roots deep and your leaves reaching for the sun. Stay wild and stay well.